Hi there everyone, this is Adamantium here again. Basically today I'm bringing you a completely different video that I normally do. This I'm calling my activist's armour. Essentially what this pertains to is the necessary legislation and case law and other legal information that I carry around on my person that protects me from any abuse, intimidation, harassment, or other despotic behaviour from any kind of authorities that feel they can try and gain any jurisdiction over me. Basically what I normally do, I've got a group of pieces of paper here, and essentially I've written on them, you know, all the different little bits that protect me, and I basically carry them on me. It's actually better if you have all this kind of stuff memorized, but I will run down some of the basic information that will protect you, even though I will make a short disclaimer here. I am not a legal expert, so please do not consider this video or any of the information contained within to be official legal advice. You would need to go to someone who is credentialed in the legal system to, you know, and those kind of people you should consider, you know, legal advice, because, you know, they've studied this academically, even though, you know, I don't completely agree with the structure of academia. But anyway, that's, you know, that's my disclaimer. Basically, I would advise that any activist knows the law and their rights when it pertains to the things that they're doing, because it stops them from, you know, having to submit to any jumped up police officer or security guard or any other kind of enforcement employee that tries their luck with us. And you know, that's, you know, and that's one thing that I consider to be an infringement of basic human rights, when you are coerced into submitting to someone else's will when you don't have to. That's one of the reasons why I've actually researched the relevant law and legislation and case law that pertains to everything that I do, so I can protect myself. And I would advise that any activist, if they don't, unless they want to be thrown in the slammer for no reason whatsoever, they just agree to be, you know, to fall into their jurisdiction, then go ahead. But for those of you who don't and want to carry on what you're doing, then listen up, guys, because this is the stuff that I've found that does protect me. Because for those of you who've watched my previous Maidstone Police Fail videos, you'll know that they try whatever they can to try and crack down on me. Every single time they walk away and I'm still a free man. Okay, so the first piece of legislation that protects you, and I would consider this probably the benchmark of our, you know, of an activist's freedom, is Article 10 of the Human Rights Act 1998, a link to which you will find here. Article 10 essentially is the American equivalent is the First Amendment, freedom of speech. In our legal system, it's Article 10 of the Human Rights Act 1998. It's freedom of expression, and it says, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to freedom of expression. This shall include freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without interference from public authority and regardless of frontiers." Now, I have found that citing that piece of legislation has actually just dumbfounded so many police officers, and they just give up whatever they're trying, because, you know, I hold them to the fact that they are sworn by oath to uphold this kind of legislation, and they cannot argue against it whatsoever. But moving on, for those of you who use a megaphone like I do, you'll know that you may be aware of a particular piece of case law in 2007 that actually enables us to lawfully use a megaphone in a public place, as long as we're not causing a breach of section 448 or 5 of the Public Order Act 1986, a link of which you will see below. But pertaining to this piece of case law, in 2007, a High Court case between Huntingdon Life Sciences Group plc and Stop Huntingdon Animal Cruelty, Justice Holland, the presiding judge, stated, and I quote, "The use of a megaphone as an adjunct of lawful protest is itself lawful. The starting point is unfettered freedom to engage in so much amplified protest as is neither intimidating or harassing." Now, for details of that particular piece of case law, you will find a link to that right here. And essentially, what he's saying is that as long as you're not using a megaphone in an intimidating, harassing, or offensive, or confrontational, or violence-inciting manner, then it's completely lawful. So using a megaphone, like I do, like the Love Police does, like so many other peaceful activists use a megaphone, is completely lawful. They can't do a single thing to you. Okay? But anyway, for those of you who film in public, there's a piece of information that's on the Metropolitan Police's photography advice, a link to which you will find here. It states, and I quote, "Members of the public and the media do not need a permit to film or photograph in public places, and police have no power to stop them filming or photographing incidents or police personnel." So just for those of you who are faced with a police officer saying, "Oh no, you can't film, stop filming, it's an offence to film." It's not an offence to film. And you can even ask them. There's a video on YouTube of Darren. I can't remember his second name, but he had some cops like walk into his back garden where he was, and telling him it's an offence to film officers. You can't film. And he was like, "No, it's not an offence. It's not an offence." And they're like, "No, it's an offence. It's an offence." And they basically got on the radio to their sergeant, and the sergeant was just like, "No, it's not an offence," and they had to walk away. But there's that. But yeah, as I mean, one of the things I say is that as long as you're in a public place or in a public area, then you are completely entitled to film. Because if it was illegal to film in a public place, what were the CCTV cameras doing? But yeah, we're referring to public place as defined by the National Public Order Legislation Guide. I'll provide a link for it in a bit because there's more stuff from there that I will touch on. It's defined as an area to which the public have access, or a public or a place, which is visible to the public. Now, obviously, that refers to high streets because the public have access to the high street. The public can see the high street. Shopping centres. But then again, that's where it comes into a bit of a grey area, because there's so many videos on YouTube where activists are turfed out of shopping centres. They'll say, "Oh no, it's private property, get off," sort of thing. When in fact it's actually corporate property. I mean, the security guards of Fremlin Walk have tried to convince me that Fremlin Walk is private property, when in fact in my last Maidstone Police Fail video, no, not my last Maidstone Police Fail, the one before that, the first two-parter one, I basically showed through just a little bit of research that it's corporate property, not private property. But yeah, but coming back to the Human Rights Act 1998, there's another few pieces of information that protects us. First is Article 3, which is prohibition of torture. Now, this only really pertains if the police are going to start getting really violent, like some of the examples you've seen of like Occupy Wall Street, especially a lot in America, and some like and all over the world, but particularly in America. But Article 3, prohibition of torture, a link to which you will find below. It states, and I quote, "No one shall be subjected to torture or to inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment." So that basically means, you know, if I don't give you consent to touch me or to hurt me, then you are causing a breach of Article 3. Not only would you be causing, you know, assault to a person if you were to do that. Another one is Article 5, link to which you will find here, which is right to liberty and security. Section 1 of Article 5 states, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to liberty and the security of person. No one shall be deprived of this liberty, save in the case of 1A, B, C, D, E, or F." Now, if you look into that, you'll find the other little bits of that. But Section 5 says, and I quote, "Everyone who has been the victim of arrest or detention in contravention of the provisions of this article shall have an enforceable right to compensation." And there's also Article 11 as well, which is freedom of assembly and association, a link to which you will find here. Section 1 states, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of association with others, including the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his interests." Now, obviously, that last bit about, you know, trade unions, it's, you know, not completely relevant to most of the things that activists do, but there's a lot of marches and stuff that are done, you know, that are organised by unions and so forth. So that's something that pertains to that. Another thing that comes up is, you know, it's certainly happened to me quite a lot when a police officer asks for your details, and some police officers have tried to claim that refusing to give your details is an offence. It's not. I would say here's a link to the legislation that proves that you have to provide information, but no such statute exists. There is no statute that by itself obliges you to provide details regardless. Okay, refusing to give your details is not by itself an offence. It is an offence only when the police have reasonable suspicion of antisocial behaviour, and by which that means they have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that there is suspicion of antisocial behaviour, or to have witnessed it themselves. The lawful use of a megaphone does not constitute antisocial behaviour unless there is actual intent to cause harassment, alarm and distress. That would be a breach of Section 4 of the Public Order Act 1986. Okay? But also, there's another thing that you can actually say if a police officer is starting to get quite belligerent with you and forceful, verbally forceful with you. One thing you can say is, and I quote, "You do not have my consent to touch me, search me, take my fingerprints, blood, DNA, placed on a database, or for any officer to ask me further questions." That's one thing you can basically say. If you're feeling quite, backed into a corner, and you want to assert your freedom to not associate with them at all, because that's the thing. You are not legally or lawfully obliged to talk to a police officer. If you don't want to talk to them, then just say, "Officer, I don't have to talk to you, and I'm choosing not to." They cannot force you to talk to them. But yeah, there's that. Earlier I pertained to the National Public Order Legislation Guide, and the reason why I wanted to provide the link now is because the piece that I'm going to read out now is a wonderful piece of information that dumbfounds police when when I tell them this. A link to it's the National Public Order Legislation Guide, a link to which you will find here. The section in particular pertains to human rights, and this is wonderful. Okay, this is wonderful. Listen up. Quote: all officers have an individual responsibility for ensuring that they are properly educated and informed about the extent to which their legal powers and the context within which those powers can properly be exercised. It is unacceptable for a police officer to claim ignorance of the law. Need I say more? But yeah, there's that. But some of you may be thinking, yeah, but what does a police officer actually have to do? You know, what are they obliged to do? Well, there's an oath that police officers swear. You know, police oaths are different all over, from country to country, even region to region. In fact, I've actually written down the police oath for England and Wales, and it goes as follows: I ... do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve the Queen in the office of constable with fairness, integrity, diligence and impartiality, upholding fundamental human rights. That's upholding human rights, not enforcing statutes, and according equal respect to all people, and that I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and preserved. And that's why police officers should be peace officers, not policy enforcement officers, and prevent all offences against people and their property. That bit pertains to the one of the founding principles of the police force, which was the breach of the peace. Where basically that is where you cause someone to fear for their own personal safety or for their personal property. Sorry, I'll carry on. And that while I continue to hold the said office, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof faithfully according to law. That's the oath that police officers swear. Now, sometimes a police officer will try and use terrorism as an excuse to try and do what they will. But the thing is, there's no excuse there. I mean, sure, I may have a beard, you know, I may, right, but this is not a turban, okay? This is a baseball cap made of hemp. This is not a turban, alright? If we're going to go by the archetypal terrorist thing. But they, in particular, they will try Section 44 of the Terrorism Act 2000. The link to which is here. The link to the information of which. But the thing is, even when, I mean, I'll go into this in a bit, but even when it did apply, it was already void ab initio. Because it's a breach of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights 1953, a link to which is here. And that states, and I quote, Section 1, everyone has the right to respect for his private and family life, his home and his correspondence. Section 2, there shall be no interference by a public authority with the exercise of this right. End quote. But as I pertained to just a second ago, Section 44 is now treated as repealed. So they can't claim Section 44 at all anymore anyway. But instead, police are now forced to rely on Section 43A, which, as if you know the Terrorism Act 2000, you'll know that it requires provable and reasonable suspicion of terrorism. So there's that, you know, straw man that they try and launch on you. Moving on from police now, there's one other kind of public authority, as it were, that try their luck with me. They're known as environmental enforcement officers. Now, some of you may have seen them in your area. They're certainly around Kent. Essentially, their powers come from the Environmental Protection Act 1990, a link to which is below. Now, for those of you who, like me, use a megaphone during your activism, there's only one part of the Environmental Protection Act 1990 which pertains to the use to any kind of attempt at jurisdiction they might try and get on you for using a megaphone, and that is Part 3, Statutory Nuisances and Clean Air, in particular Section 1, Subsection GA, a link to which is here. And that states, and I quote, "Noise that is prejudicial to health or a nuisance and is emitted from or caused by a vehicle, machinery or equipment in the street." And so, as you'll know from the from my last Maidstone Police fail video, you know, the lady was trying to think that, you know, she could ask the police to tell me to turn my megaphone down because it was giving her a migraine, even though she lives right next to a busy road where there are buses, taxis, emergency response vehicles going past day in, day out. But there's that. So, you know, you can argue it either way, I suppose, but the thing is, you can also claim the you know, Article 10 of the Human Rights Act 1998 to protect you. That is basically your freedom of expression, and also the case law for the Huntingdon Life Sciences Group PLC against stop animal cruelty. Yeah, a link of which I've already provided, I think. But yeah, you can claim that and basically show them that they're just not, you know, having any success in trampling all over you. But that's the legal information, legislation, case law, blah blah blah, that pertains to the stuff that stuff in general about either street activism or megaphone activism. But there's I just wanted to offer you a little bit more information about the kind of stuff that I personally do. And one of them is I really love to tell the public about a particular piece of constitutional law, I'll go into that in a second, that basically makes the performance of any civil enforcement officer, environmental enforcement officer, or any on-the-spot fine that a police officer will try and impose on you, which is the Bill of Rights 1689, Article 12, otherwise known as Section 2, Clause 12, a link to which is below. And this wonderful piece of constitutional law states, and I quote, that all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures of particular persons before conviction are illegal and void. So you can tell why I love telling the public that, because it shows that what the environmental enforcement officers do when they try and impose £75 on-the-spot fines to people are actually illegal, because you have to be convicted first in order for any fine against you to have a legal basis. And in fact, you know, to be completely specific, it's not just void, it's void ab initio. Okay, you know, because any particular piece of legislation in the Environmental Protection Act that pertains to any fine is actually void ab initio, because it is a breach of this constitutional law. Now, for those of you who maybe think of void ab initio, what does that mean? Well, ab initio is a Latin term. It means from the beginning. It's essentially to be treated as invalid from the outset. If you look up the definition of void in Black's Law Dictionary, you will find that it is, and I quote, having no legal force or binding effect, unable in law to support the purpose for which it was intended. Now, if you notice, if you look up void ab initio in Black's Law Dictionary, you will find that it is, and I quote, a contract that is null from the beginning if it seriously offends law or public policy, in contrast to a contract which is merely voidable at the election of one of the parties to the contract. So, as you can tell, any kind of attempt at fining you is void ab initio, because it's a breach of section section 2 clause 12 or article 12 of the Bill of Rights 1689. But yeah, that's a little bit of information as to some of the stuff that I do. But some of you may be thinking, but what if all that fails? What if all that fails? Well, there's a little piece of information that can help you if they're going to be arresting you. By which, if you're acting lawfully, and as long as you're acting respectfully towards the police and laying out this information, this shouldn't happen anyway. Because but if it does happen, then obviously they're performing an unlawful arrest. But even so, one thing you can say is, officer, I am a peaceful man or woman. If you are going to arrest me, there will be no need for force or violence. I will not resist arrest. However, you are obliged to note that I will be performing under protest and duress at all times. I reserve my rights at all times and waive none of my rights at any time for cause or reason. I do not consent to this arrest. I reserve my right to not be compelled to perform under any contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally, and I do not accept the liability of the compelled benefit or any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement which are my pursuits to common law. Now, as you can tell, as long as you make that clear to the officers, and another good thing would be if you get them to write that down as well. As you're acting lawfully, you're stating you do not consent to it. As long as they write it down, then, or as long as you get that, get it filmed, or have a dictaphone on you, but have some record of you saying that to the officer. Make sure there is some record of it, because if any kind of charge was trying to be formed out of that situation, then all you can do through appeal is you can provide that evidence and show that the arrest was completely unlawful. So there's that. Again, I will state my disclaimer that I am not an expert in this sort of thing. I'm not a legal expert. I just know the particular legal information, case law, and all that sort of stuff that protects me and those around me that I care about. So I would encourage any activist to research the law, research their rights, find out exactly how to stand up for those rights, but most importantly, act lawfully. Please by all means, don't, like it says on the sticker on the side of my megaphone, don't be a dick. Alright? Don't be a dick. That's basically a paraphrasing of act lawfully. My rights end where your rights begin, in the words of Michael of Bernicia. Okay? And also have fun. If you're not having fun being an activist, then stop. It's not worth it if you're not having fun. And even when the police are trying their absolute best to crowbar in their jurisdiction and get you under their thumb, you should still be having fun, but don't be arrogant, don't be ignorant, don't be insulting, be respectful, and and treat them with the respect that you would want in return, but also hold them to certain things. I mean, one of the things that I've realised is, I guess one of the many reasons why I do my Maidstone Police Fail videos is because I look back on the footage that I record, and I see things and I hear things that they say that didn't completely compute at the time. Like one of the things that the Officer 10025 said to me in my last Maidstone Police Fail video, when he said, actually, I know your details, but I'm asking, are you going to give me your details? Now, at the time, that just went straight over my head, because I was trying to focus on trying to question him on, am I obliged to give you my details? And that's one thing that I forgot to mention. You know, if a police officer asks for your details, ask them, am I obliged to give you my details? Or you can say, is that an order or a request? If they say it's a request, then you say, okay, well, if it's a request, then I have the right to decline. Can I not? And and basically they will have to admit that you are not obliged to give them your details, even if they say that, because that officer, he tried to say, well, I already know your details, but are you going to give me my details? Give me your details, sorry. So he's basically saying, well, I've already got you, but are you going to give me your details? But you don't have to. But that's that. I could ramble on for ages and ages and ages. That's basically my activist Armour video. For more information about any of the stuff that I've talked about, I've given loads of links. If anyone can find any inaccuracies about any information I've given, please let me know. I want to make this information as best as I can, and the only way I can do that is if it gets revised through the receipt of transforming information in the form of constructive criticism and corrections. I want to be able to provide the best protection for myself and everyone around me, and I want to be able to give you guys the best video that I can to help protect me and to also protect you. That's the whole reason why I'm making this video, to let you know. I mean, this isn't, so this group of pieces of paper isn't just a group of pieces of paper in my pocket, or on my person, wherever. It's also information out there for you guys to think, right, what's this piece of legislation? I'll look that up, and say, right, that's that, I'll write that down, or maybe memorize it. It's best to memorize it, because these pieces of paper, they could always be taken off you if the police find them. If you're in the situation where you're being forced in order to be searched, they could take these pieces of paper off you, and if you don't have them memorized, then you're screwed, because you can't cite the particular law that protects you. So by all means, don't take my word for anything in this video. Don't take it as official legal advice. I'm not an expert in the law, but by all means, research this for yourself and find out for yourself. But that's all I'm going to do, because I don't want to make a video that's way too long. But take care guys, see you later.